Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3467. Today's date is 27 of June 2025. It's been almost like evening at 7 p.m. Yeah, exactly. It's been almost like a 7 p.m. Why am I recording Artifact so early? Yeah, usually very early. Basically, early means like that. Ki I usually record Artifact during the morning at 8 a.m. Okay, or 8:30 or 9 a.m. Okay, yeah. Then I usually record Artifact during the night after I dinner, means 9:30 p.m. or 10 p.m. Right? These are kind of like only my usual time to record Artifact. But it's been almost like exact 7 p.m. and I haven't really ate my dinner. So why the fuck I'm recording Artifact at this moment? Okay, yeah. It's because of that ki I never really went to work out. Yeah, like today I didn't really went to work out. Reason, I masturbate. That's why. Yeah, just like afternoon I masturbate. Okay, and yeah, it felt really wrong, but still I masturbate. So, uh, so that's why I didn't really went there. No, I didn't really went to work out. Okay, yeah. So right now it's a really good environment. Yeah, like it's a really good, beautiful evening, by the way. And I wanted to kind of like a talk about something really good stuff. I want to talk about something like that keep productive. Okay, yeah. All right. So let's jump right into the topic. All right. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go this. Okay. Yeah. Question is, how does government measure real economic success beyond just a GDP? Oh, that is a really good question. That's a really, really good question. Okay. First of all, is that key? What exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? Okay, yeah. Okay, so this question is associate with the economics. Okay, I don't know really nothing about economics. I don't know how to nothing. Yeah, just like nothing. Okay, I wanted to kind of like understand economics. Okay, yeah. Like in the school in the 10th standard, I have economics subject, but it was kind of like something very boring and things like that. And at that time, it just I don't really have that much interest regarding about economics. Okay, yeah. And after the 10th I choose science stream. In the science stream I have to eliminate economics, social science subject, and add physics and chemistry. Okay, because science stream as associated with science. So yeah, all right. So since then economics is a kind of like something always been cut off. Always, yeah, it's always like a since like I didn't really have any information regarding about economics. Okay, yeah, like whatever the information that I have regarding about economics, just kind of like a, somebody just watching a couple of YouTube videos and things, and that's it. Okay, and now I realize that like watching those couple of videos on YouTube platform, I realize that economics is a really really important subject. Okay, yeah, it is something that it is kind of like a superhero that you might not see. Okay, yeah, like basically a superman kind of like a somebody you can see, you can kind of like a somebody that he is fighting, he is things like a basically whatever the effort that superman is doing, you are kind of like a somebody seeing that effort. Okay, yeah, and then you consider that ki, oh, this is superman. But economics is a kind of like a something subject that it's a silent superhero. Okay, yeah, like it doesn't show off, it doesn't it no it's not, it's kind of like a something secret cia. Okay, yeah, like a cia does the do kind of like a things, like this is what exactly is it. Okay, yeah, like no one knows what is actually doing and things like that. But kind of like a whatever the stuff that they are doing is kind of like a something that key um like adding the value to the economy, or kind of like somebody build our future, build the economy, build the country's growth is much bigger, better, and things like that. So economy is a kind of like somebody a secret superhero. Okay, yeah. And I wanted to understand this thing. I want to know, because if I want to grow a kind of like a somebody community or society or country, it's really essential factor to understand the economy. But dude, I'm actually asking this question. Okay, yeah, if you wanted to grow your society or things like that or country, are you decided to be a kind of like a somebody economics, or kind of like a somebody person who is kind of like in the politician, or kind of like a somebody that ki, like would you yeah, like basically no, I don't want to be kind of like a somebody, be a politician, be a finance minister, no, nothing like that. I like gaining the information is essential na. It's not meant to be that ki if I want to be a kind of like a somebody finance minister, then I would be learn about the economics and things like that. No, basically it's this thing na ki I love this type of this kind of like a somebody, the economics is kind of like a somebody subject that I'm completely unaware of that. Okay, yeah, and that's why I've just wanted to know. It's not meant for that ki I wanted to be a finance minister, or I wanted to be kind of like a somebody prime minister, or I wanted to, no, nothing like that at all na. It's not. Okay, yeah, and basically let me tell you one thing. I am not kind of like a somebody person that I don't know in the future if I don't know at this moment I'm not really sure. Okay, yeah, but let me tell you one thing na. Economics is kind of like a somebody something like telling a particular story regarding about numbers, regarding about, it's not just a number, but it's kind of like a somebody telling the story regarding about country's growth and everything. And in the future, I don't know. In the future, I'm not gonna become a kind of like a somebody finance minister or prime minister. No, I don't know. But it's just like that. Ki in the future, I wanted to run a business. Okay, yeah, and business runs on numbers. Okay, yeah, like what is exactly this number, that number, and that number, and I was completely unaware of that. Economics is kind of like a letting me know about these numbers, letting me little bit familiar regarding about these numbers. So this is what really matters to me. Okay, yeah, so that's why I just wants to know, that's why I just wants to know. It's not meant for kind of like only want to be a finance minister, or meant to be kind of like a prime minister. No, I don't know. It's just like I want to know this thing. I just, yeah, so that's why I'm kind of like asking this question to myself. All right, okay, yeah, so this economic subject. Okay, so what exactly is this question? Okay, yeah, and what is actually meaning of this question? Okay, so meaning of this question is that ki how do I supposed to measure the country's growth? Okay, yeah, like what kind of like a some factor? Like basically the country's growth is actually measured by the GDP. Okay, yeah, gross domestic product progress. I'm not really sure what is actually. Okay, yeah, right now it's kind of like a something. My phone is lagging, but all right, yeah. So gross domestic product. Okay, yeah, like basically I just did a Gemini. Okay, yeah, so what is actually GDP? GDP is a gross domestic kind of like a something product. Okay, so what is actually is this thing? And basically if I wanted to measure, if I wanted to measure the country's progress, how do I supposed to measure? Okay, yeah, let's just explain this thing in simple format. Okay, yeah. So let's say like let's imagine you are kind of like a somebody person. Okay, yeah, let's just say that ki you are making breads. Okay, yeah, like a cake. Okay, yeah, cake, birthday cake. Okay, yeah, you are making cakes. Okay, you are kind of like only person who makes cake. You have bakery, you have kind of like a somebody a cake. Okay, yeah, you are kind of like a something making almost like a, in a month you are making almost like a 100 or 200 cakes. Okay, yeah, and within 100 200 cakes, all the cakes are kind of like somebody sold. Okay, yeah. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key, how much money that required to make 200 cake. Let's just imagine, let's just take 100 rupees. Okay, yeah, for understanding the simple terminology, you really required to make 100 rupees to make 100 cakes. Okay, yeah, 100 rupees, right? And you actually sold those cakes in 150 rupees, right? So probably you have 50 rupees of profit, right? Yeah, so that profit called some sort of that key, some sort of that key, kind of like a GDP. Okay, yeah, just as simple as I'm trying to explain. Okay, yeah, means like that key, whatever the product that you make, and after you make this product, you kind of like a minus the kind of like a such a price where money required to make this product. Okay, yeah, and whatever the profit that you have, that is called kind of like a something GDP. Okay, it's not exactly the correct, but it's not exactly correct definition, but kind of like a somewhat similar, because in the country level things might be very different. Okay, because in country level everything bit really complicated because there are hundreds of companies, billions of data and things and that. Okay, yeah. But this kind of like assembly understanding in simple format, this is what it is. Okay, yeah. Whatever the profit that you get, that is called kind of like assembly profit. Okay, that is called kind of like assembly GDP. All right. So when you have that 50 kind of like a only 50 rupees as a profit, okay, yeah, so you invest that kind of like a only money to make your cake better, or kind of like a something that key you're gonna hire this person or that person to kind of like a make your load little bit less, or kind of like a something like whatever you're gonna do to make your business good. Okay, yeah. And you are kind of like utilizing your profit money. Okay, yeah. If you are spending 100 rupees and you are earning 70 rupees, means like that ki you make almost like 100 rupees of cake, and unfortunately your cake doesn't really sold, you just sold almost like a 70 rupees of cake. That means 30 rupees are lost. Okay, yeah. So GDP is in the loss too. Okay, yeah. So means like that if you achieve if you achieve loss, that is also counted as a kind of like a minus GDP. So GDP went plus and GDP went minus 2. Okay, yeah, it's regarding about kind of like a number and things like that. All right. As a kind of like explain this thing as simple as possible as I can. Okay, yeah. One thing, do you understand GDP? All right, yeah. Now, is the GDP is a kind of like a perfect source to kind of like a describe the growth of the country? Is it that? It's not. Okay, yeah. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key GDP just only counts the profit. Okay, yeah. Like as I mentioned, okay, yeah. The boy or the person who is actually making cakes. Okay, yeah. The GDP only counts profit. Okay, yeah, like a 50%, like a 50 kind of like some rupees he actually earned the profit by spending 100 rupees of cake and things like that. Okay, yeah. So it's kind of like simply counting just a profit. It's not counting the effort that man to make that cake. Another thing, it doesn't really count the man how much kind of like somebody spent times to make that cake. Another thing, it doesn't count the person health who actually making that cake. It doesn't count the kind of like somebody the person happiness to make that cake. It doesn't count the person how much he is actually facing the stress while making the cake. Okay, yeah. So this is what it is. Like there are so many things that doesn't count. But why? Yeah, like basically is this thing. If he's a kind of like a somebody the man who's actually getting the profit, then probably he's happy now. He's a kind of like a really good, really great. His healthcare is really good, right? That is not true. That is definitely not true. Yeah, you might kind of like consider that that person is actually gaining profit, and he might gonna kind of like somebody assume that he might gonna kind of like somebody spend that money on himself to make him better, make him spend money on his healthcare and things like that. But that is not true, by the way. How do you supposed to kind of like somebody assume that thing? It's not. It's a very difficult to assume that thing because it's. It is not nah. It might be kind of like consider that ki like you might found a kind of like only couple of people who is kind of like a working for almost like a 30-year 40-year of their job, and though they don't really like doing it that, but they're still doing it that. Why? Because they are earning money, right? So basically is this thing, the person who actually making the cake might not kind of like somebody happy. Okay, yeah. And in the end we are human, and our reward system is not money. His reward system is actually based on how much happiness that we get, right? Yeah. So basically our happiness rely on so many level: our health, our social situation, or social surrounding, or things, and that lot of things. So probably GDP is not proper way to count that ki this person is actually earning money or earning profit, or like this country is actually kind of like a have profit or things like that. No, it's just kind of like somebody giving the profit regarding about how much money he make. Okay, but it doesn't count that how much that particular person is good or not, or things like that. Get it? All right, yeah. So if there is a if there is a kind of like a person who is, if there is a kind of like a country as a person, okay, huh, And like if there like those are kind of like a simply term is not kind of like a simply doesn't really measure what are kind of like a simply the what are kind of like a simply the measuring system that we have to kind of like a measure those things. How like it's a like basically why I'm kind of like something thing. How do I supposed to measure that key person is happy? Like is there like we don't really have any kind of like a device that key you are kind of like a happiness have almost like a 10 out of 2 or you happiness of 10 out of 10. We don't really have that kind of like a device to measure the happiness, right? So how do I supposed to measure the happiness, right? It's a kind of like a very vague term now. It's a kind of like a something that key, yeah, because most of people might be lie regarding about their happiness because they might gonna think they might gonna say that I'm really happy, but in the end they are not happy. So yeah, or maybe someone kind of like say that ki I am really healthy, I'm really good, I'm really kind of like I'm not really having any kind of like a problem regarding about health, but he don't renew it, but inside of his he has might be a cancer. So how do we supposed to be measure those parameter, how do we supposed to measure those kind of like things, right? Yeah, okay. So let me give the previous example as I mentioned earlier. Okay, yeah, regarding about this person profit. Okay, yeah, this might be a kind of like a something simple, but it's not exactly correct. Okay, yeah, because the example that I'm trying to tell you is not the perfect example. Okay, yeah, because it's a kind of like a, just a person and things like that. Okay, because if you went to country level, then this might be very different game. Okay, because in the country level there are billions of people and so many things and stuff like that. So how first of all is that ki how do we supposed to measure those parameter, how do we supposed to measure the parameter of happiness, healthcare? Okay, yeah, also there is also another factor too, I am completely forgot. Okay, yeah, as I mentioned, GDP only counts profit, right? Yeah, it doesn't count the environment effect. What do you mean by that? Example, like basically is this saying that person makes cake. Okay, yeah, and basically for that particular person makes cake, he run kind of like a simply oven, or he run kind of like a simply the burner or things like that, or maybe flame or things like that. Okay, yeah, that flame is actually kind of like a happen because of that particular person is actually burning wood or things like that. It create pollution, and that pollution is kind of like a might impact to the environment. Okay, yeah, so this is kind of like a some very problem too. Okay, yeah, because as I mentioned, GDP only counts profit, but it doesn't count the environment effect, it doesn't count the pollution, it doesn't count, right, it doesn't count all those things, it's not counting anything at all, it only counts the profit. Okay, so how do we supposed to kind of like a measure the parameter of kind of like a some environment effect, healthcare, happiness, how do we supposed to measure that thing? Okay, yeah, now I am kind of like a simply explain this thing in a kind of like a simply very simple format to kind of like a simply, let's just imagine a guy who is actually doing a business. Okay, let's just imagine a guy who is kind of like a simply doing a business as a bakery. Okay, yeah, like a basically previous example, same example. Okay, yeah, but we need to kind of like explain this thing even more further. Okay, because in previous example I mentioned that there is a one guy who's actually making the cake, and the one guy is actually selling that cake, and he's actually earning money and he's in profit, that's it. Okay, yeah, but in this particular example we are kind of like explain this thing little bit further. Okay, yeah, so this is the guy named A guy. Okay, yeah, now A guy is kind of like a only owner, right? Yeah, he is not making the cake, he is a kind of like a only owner. Okay, yeah, now he has a kind of like a somebody couple of bawarchis or kind of like a somebody chef who are actually making the cake. Let's just imagine he has almost like maybe 10 bawarchis. Okay, yeah, now let's just try to imagine how much people does really required to make 100 cakes. Okay, yeah, with people and material and things like that, let's just imagine that thing. Okay, yeah, so I'm just like right now I'm taking right now I'm kind of like a simply assuming all those things. It's not kind of like a simply exactly correct number, but somewhat something associated with that thing. Okay, yeah, now let's just say there is a owner. Okay, yeah, who is actually selling the cake. Okay, yeah, now under him there is a kind of like a somebody 10 bawarchis. Okay, who actually make the cake in the kitchen, right? Yeah, 10 bawarchi has almost like a one assistant. Okay, yeah, so maybe 10 bawarchis has a 10 assistants So that means 20 people, right? Yeah. Another thing is that there is also two people who is actually managing all those systems, like basically person who actually came to his store and things like that. So there is a guy who is actually at the store, okay, maybe two guys, okay, yeah. One guy is actually at the back end, another guy is actually kind of like just two guys actually kind of like managing the store and things like that, okay. And then there is a kind of like a somebody that 10 guys is actually working on back end to kind of like getting the material and things like that, like not 10 guys, like let's just say 5 guys, okay. So how many people are in there, okay. Let's just 10 bawarshi, 10 people, 10 assistants, 20, 2 people who is actually at the store, that means 22, and almost like maybe 3 people is actually at the back end who is kind of like giving them kind of like something the material, like bring the material or things like that, yeah. So there are 3 people, so that means 25 people, okay, yeah. Include owner, 26 people, yeah. So there are 26 people is actually working on 100 cakes, right? Yeah. So do you only count only 26 people? Yeah, these are 26 people, but these 26 people is not a kind of like something correct, okay. Let me explain this thing, okay, let me explain, okay. First of all, just understand this thing as simple as possible as it can, because it's a very complicated topic, but it's a very simple in itself, okay. Now there is a 26 people, okay, who is actually working this 100 cakes, okay. Now those 26 people are also married too, right? They have their wife, they have their children, they have things, okay, yeah. So let's just assume they are like they are almost like like all those 26 people are married, okay, yeah. They have one child, they have two wives, sorry sorry, there are two child and one wife, no two wives, sorry. They have one wife and two child, okay, yeah. So how many it is, like let me calculate. Right now I just need a calculator, and also I'm really suck at mathematics, so I am so if there is something wrong happened in my calculation, don't blame me, okay, yeah. So there are 26 people into how many people, like if I'm counting 4 na, like basically like let's just say count 4, okay, so multiply by 4, okay, yeah. So there are almost like 104 people, okay, yeah. So what do you mean by that 104? So basically the whatever the company is actually earning profit, or whatever the company is actually earning loss and things like that, it affect on 104 people, because indirectly these are 104 people are connected with that particular company, connected with that particular cake making company, right? Yeah. So get it. Now 104 people, they have 104 people have kind of like somebody all those their problems too, like basically is saying their health problem, their things, and their that and that, okay, yeah. How do we supposed to measure those parameter and things like that, okay, yeah. First of all is that uh, I don't know how to supposed to measure the parameter. Okay, I just literally I don't know. I'm just kind of like somebody saying some sort of things, but I just literally don't know how to supposed to measure the parameter. I'm legit saying I'm just kind of like a bluffing right now, or maybe I'm bluffing, or I'm not kind of like somebody. Whatever the information that I'm trying to telling you is kind of like somewhat something I heard, or I don't know. Okay, yeah. So how do I supposed to measure those parameter? Okay, yeah. So let's just company is in profit. Okay, yeah. Let's just say those people makes 100 cakes. Okay, yeah, which cost 100 rupees, and those people actually sell those cakes in 150 rupees. They actually gain profit of 50 rupees. Okay, yeah. So now they have 50 rupees of profit. Okay, yeah. Now 50 rupees profit is actually divided on 26 people, because 26 people is actually kind of like a working to make that company profit and good, okay, yeah. 100 and how many people, 104 people are actually kind of like a something family and things like that, but we don't really count it, okay, yeah. But like there is a 50% profit na, like there is a 50% profit is actually happened, okay, yeah. And right now we are actually sharing those profit equally with all those people, right? Equally all those people, but it doesn't really happen equally, right? Yeah. Like basically let's just assume, okay, let's just assume, okay, yeah. Also, the stuff that I'm trying to tell you is entirely kind of like assembly regarding about assumption and things like that. It's not exactly right, exactly correct. Just try to explain this thing as simple as possible as I can. And during this, but okay, yeah, get it? Okay, yeah. Don't fuck with me because my mathematics is really fucking me right now. Oh yeah, because it does really require numbers and I'm not really good with the number. Okay, yeah. Got it. Okay, yeah. Let's just say. So, company makes kind of like assembly 100 cakes. Okay, that 100 cakes cost 100 rupees to make 100 cakes. Okay, yeah. That company sold those cakes in 150 rupees. Okay, yeah. So basically, for making that cake, means 100 rupees cake is kind of like a eliminate, and they get 50%, 50 rupees of profit. Right? Yeah, 50 rupees of profit. Now, like who actually control that profit, who actually kind of like somebody have that profit, who actually this thing profit. Okay, yeah. So the owner has a kind of like somebody profit, right? Yeah, because owner is kind of like somebody that he control all those things and that he will not gonna kind of like somebody share the profit with everyone or each employee. It's not happen, it's not, nothing really actually happen in the business and things like that. Okay, yeah. So the owner gets kind of like somebody very full control of all those things. Okay, yeah. But he also, the owner is also really good, and he also kind of like spend some sort of money on those people to actually kind of like build those company to make the profit and things like that. Okay, yeah. So now imagine, from 50 rupees he took 40 rupees on himself. Okay, 40 rupees took by owner, and 10% means like a 10 rupees is actually kind of like a spread all around the employees. How many employees? 25 employees. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that key, let's just counting. Okay, yeah. So how many employees? 25 employees. Okay, yeah. And owner is actually willing to give 10 rupees. Okay, yeah. 10 rupees to all 25 people. Okay, it's not like a 10 rupees. No, just like basically we are dividing by 10 into 25, 10 divided by 25, right? Yeah, because like basically it's kind of like a something, the 10 rupees actually split in 25 persons. Okay, yeah. So 10 divided by 25. So how many, like a 0.4. Okay, yeah, 0.4. What do you mean by, what is actually this number tell us? Okay, yeah, 0.4, that means like basically the employee is actually getting the salary. Okay, he is actually getting the salary by this and that. After the salary, owner is actually giving them 0.4% of their profit. 0.4% of the profit means like that. What exactly happened? Okay, yeah. Let's just kind of like assume the imaginary salary number. Okay, yeah. Like basically let's just say 30,000 rupees. Okay, yeah. So the each employee is actually working on that company gets 30,000 rupees of salary. Okay, yeah. So 30,000 rupees salary he also getting even if the company went to profit or loss, right? Yeah. But the owner is actually kind of like a willing to spend that money to kind of like somebody give the kind of like a 0.4% of the profit to the customer, to the employee and things like that. So how much it is? 0.4% means what? How much it is? It might be kind of a consider as a maybe 35 rupees. Okay, sorry, 35,000 rupees. Alright, yeah, 35,000 rupees each person, right? Yeah. So basically all the 25 people get almost like a 35,000 rupees of salary. Okay, yeah. Like they have almost like a 30,000 salary, but company went profit, so owner decided that give them extra. So basically everyone gets 35,000 rupees. Now basically let's just imagine the employee get the salary, right? Yeah. But it's just like that key, the inside in their family. Okay, yeah. Does all those people are actually have same, like a same means what? Like basically just thing, as I mentioned earlier, all the 25 employee are getting the similar salary. Similar salary. Like 30,000 rupees if the company went profit, 35. Yeah. There is no ups and down. Everyone gets a kind of like some similar profit. Okay, right. But can you say all those 25 people have their home? All those 25 people have kind of like a similar financial condition? Like everyone gets a similar salary, na? but the financial condition it might not be kind of like something similar. What do you mean by that? It means like that na ki they getting the similar salary, but some person have bigger house, some person has a kind of like a smaller house, some person is kind of like a struggling to kind of like a build on healthcare or things like that, some person might affect on loan and things like that. Okay, yeah. How these things actually happen? Because I already give everyone equal salary, right? But how much it kind of like a something matter, how much they are kind of like a somebody in really fucked up situation, is because of that ki each person has its own problem, has its own things and something like that, and each person actually solve the problem according to it. What do you mean by that? Let's just imagine there is a guy who is actually earning 30,000 rupees or 35,000 rupees from this company, right? Same the company, all right, yeah. But that particular person doesn't really spend that money on his family, doesn't really spend this money on kind of like a somebody his kids or wife. No, he went to kind of like a somebody alcohol store and kind of like a drink all the time. He just drinks and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, he just only two things that he do. He just kind of like a do his job and kind of like a went to the kind of like a somebody the wine bar, and he just kind of like a drinks and spend all his money on this thing. Okay, yeah. So obviously his financial condition is really broke. One thing. Another thing, his health condition is not really good because he is actually drinking the alcohol. So his health condition is not really good. Two things. Another point, the health condition of his family is also not really good because he is not actually spending money on his family. So health condition of his family is also really not that good. Okay. Another thing, that person is not really happy. Okay, yeah, that's why he's actually drinking. As well as his family is not really happy because he is not actually giving the money to his family. Right? Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, this is kind of like something very fucked up. Okay, yeah. What has actually happened after a couple of time, that particular man die. That particular man die. Okay, yeah. And when that particular person dead, there is that in that particular family there is no have any income source. Like basically before that there is some sort of income source. He might give some sort of amount of money to his family and things like that, but still he drink. But because of his drinking too much, after 2-3 years, that particular person die. Okay, yeah. So if that particular person die, how much it affect? Okay, yeah. Let's just imagine how much it affect to the company, to the family, things like that. To the company, how much it affect? Let's just say he is a person who is actually die. He is a bawarchi and he actually make a cake, really good cakes. Okay, yeah. But he die. So basically, what does do? Company hired another person who makes the exactly cake, exactly kind of like a similar cake, and company hired that particular guy. That is good. So company doesn't really affect that much. Basically, if that particular person die, it doesn't really affect that much. Family, it affect a lot, really lot, really lot, because basically is this thing, before that that particular person is not actually spending money on his family. He spend all those money on his drink and things like that. But right now this is kind of like something very fucked up because the earning source of that man was die, in that family was die. So there is no earning source. So basically all those kind of like a family member is kind of like a something on the road, on the street, or yeah, it's yeah. So basically what I'm trying to tell you, the company is actually earning profit. Okay, yeah. But the employee or the family kind of like a somebody is not really gaining the profit. Not really, yeah. So it's it's something very wrong. Boy, this topic is kind of like a something very fucked up, really my mind. Okay, yeah. Because I wanted to explain this thing, okay, yeah, regarding about what kind of like a something measurement are essential for determine the parameter of the happiness and healthcare and things like that. But the way that I'm explaining things was like a like, is it too much, too deep? I'm not really sure. Like I'm actually kind of like I explain this thing in very deep level, whatever. Okay, yeah. So these are all those fucked up issue that I already mentioned. Okay, yeah. Now I am a good owner. Okay, like basically just say I am a kind of like a owner. Okay, yeah. And I don't want just profit of my company. I want that key each person in my company should supposed to be get advantages from the stuff that I'm doing. Okay, yeah, or kind of like a sort profit that I'm earning. Not just employee, but the kind of like a family of their employees too. So what do I supposed to do? What kind of like a some stuff that I should supposed to be do as a owner? Okay, yeah, because I first of all is that ki I will gonna kind of like assembly hired. First of all, I'm gonna do couple of steps. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna do couple of steps. Okay, first of all is that ki while I was kind of like a hiring people, okay, yeah, in my company or in my kind of like a cake manufacturing bakery or company, okay, yeah, I will gonna make sure that ki how is that person is good or not, is this person is kind of like somebody married, is this person has a family, is this person has a I'm gonna asking this question regarding about how much qualify that he has regarding about making a cakes or things like that. All right, yeah. So basically is this thing that particular person has a qualify regarding about he's really making really good cakes or things and that really good, really good. Okay, yeah. Now I have to be check regarding about how good he is, like basically how good he is regarding about regarding about family, how many people are actually in the family. Okay, this and that. Okay, yeah. When I ask this question, I would kind of like only understand that key like how good is kind of like a family person, how good is kind of like a relationship with his family. One thing, but how do you supposed to say that thing, because that person might be a lie, right? Yeah, that is a really good thing, that person might be a lie, but it's just like that key in interview mostly people are not really lying with that thing. Okay, or if someone is lie, whatever it is, it's like that na ki interview is meant to be kind of like somebody understanding the how much kind of like somebody relation that we have, that he has with his family. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that he as a owner should supposed to be kind of like a simply uh, giving the healthcare insurance not only to the employee but as also the family of their employee too. Okay, means like that ki basically as a owner I'm build the hospital. Okay, I build the hospital or things like that, and kind of like a company and the family of the company, if they are kind of like something happened, they will gonna treated, okay, in my hospital. Okay, yeah. One thing, so that healthcare problem should supposed to be solved at least in minimum level. Like basically my hospital is not actually providing kind of like a assembly cancer treatment or things like that, but it kind of like assembly provide a kind of like assembly minimal thing, like basically if there is a person is kind of like assembly the diarrhea or things like that, this might be kind of like assembly the something the kind of like assembly cure by my hospital. Okay, yeah. Not only health of my employee but as well as kind of like assembly family of the employee too. One thing. Another thing is that ki uh, that the employee in my company will not gonna work for entire period of lifetime. No, he might gonna work maybe till the age of 50, 60, let's just say 60. Okay, till the age of 60, because after the 60 that particular person might not have that kind of like a capability to make the cakes and things like that. Okay, yeah. So what do I supposed to do, basically I have to be kind of like introduce a kind of like a pension fund, pf fund. So what exactly is this thing, that key what should I supposed to do is that key I'm gonna cut off some sort of money from the employee's salary. Okay, yeah. And what I do is that ki I have to be invest that money to kind of like a some mutual fund or share market, or not share market, or mutual fund or kind of like a some FD. Okay, yeah. So what exactly is this thing, that ki I will cut some sort of fund from his salary, and whatever the fund that I cut from his salary, invest that fund into kind of like a some SIP or kind of like a some this or that. Okay, yeah. So basically when that particular person will gonna retired after 30 or 40 year, after the 30-40 year, that pension fund is kind of like a something too much, because after the 30-40 year the kind of like I say interest rate and things like that, it was gonna too much. Okay, so basically after he retired, he will have kind of like a so much amount of fund that he was kind of like he and his company is actually willing to invest money since he was kind of like a join. So the basically when he retired, he has a lot of amount of money. Okay, yeah, a pension fund, and that pension fund will kind of like sustain for rest of the lifetime. Okay, it's not really that much, but it'll be rest of the lifetime. Okay, yeah. So I actually solved the healthcare problem. I actually solve kind of like a something after the retirement. These are kind of like a something money. I also actually solve that thing. Okay, yeah. Now regarding about the happiness. Okay, yeah. How do I supposed to ensure that the employees' happiness as well as the employees' family is also literally happiness? How do I supposed to ensure that thing? um I am a kind of like a assembly owner, so basically is this thing that key I will gonna tie up with a kind of like a something the school. Okay, let's just say like I build a kind of like a primary school where kind of like a somebody give the basic education from first standard to fifth standard. Okay, first standard to fifth standard. So what I do is that key all the employee and all the employee of their families or kind of like somebody all the kids and things like that, they will gonna come into my school and they will gonna kind of like assembly learn from first standard to fifth standard a primary education. Okay, yeah, I'm giving those primary education for maybe little less amount of money, like basically if you went to get that education in like a basically private school, it was cost so much. So but if those people is actually kind of like a willing to spend in my school, they will gonna cost little less, but they will kind of like be connected, so that I actually solve the problem of education, because next generation might be kind of like somebody is this thing. Okay, yeah, a primary education somewhat something, or maybe if I have kind of like somebody willing to do those thing by a free, because education is a kind of like a something the service that has to be happen, like a government gets a lot of support. Okay, yeah, as a owner, if I'm trying to do kind of like a somebody build the primary school, then government is also kind of like giving the some sort of subsidy and things like that. Okay, yeah, so it might be kind of like somebody really helpful, right? So this is the way I'm actually kind of like solve the educational problem regarding about all these peoples and things like that. Okay, now these are kind of like I took care of the healthcare, I took care of the education, I took care of their kind of like a retirement fund and things like that. But I still not really understand how do I supposed to ensure that the employee of my company's employee will get kind of like a happiness. How do I supposed to ensure that thing? It ensure by kind of like how much they work in my company. Okay, I decided that those people will actually work in my company for almost like a 8 hours. Okay, it will gonna standard. Okay, they will not gonna work beyond that. If they are actually working beyond that, they will kind of like something that gain overtime. Okay, means like that they are earning money of that particular overtime. Okay, one thing. Another thing is that I will gonna make sure my kind of like a simply companies kind of like a policy to kind of like a simply celebrate some sort of event, Ganpati event or things for that or that. Okay, when in the company we are kind of like a celebrating that thing, the employees feel little bit of happiness. Okay, make sure that in that particular event include your family, include your everything, so that everyone will gonna come together and everyone will gonna celebrate that Ganpati festival or things like that once in a year. So this might be kind of like a add little bit of kind of like a happiness. It build the connection not only with the employees to the other employees, with the families to families too, because it build the connection. Okay, another thing is that I wanted to make sure that the employee of my company should supposed to be kind of like a live in kind of like a somebody some sort of kind of like a somebody apartment, or kind of like a somebody that I build a kind of like a somebody apartment where kind of like a somebody company employees will gonna live in my apartment. Obviously I will gonna cut down little bit amount of money from their salary, but basically all those employee will get kind of like something shelter. Okay, not only just a shelter, but everyone is actually kind of like a connect with each other, because the apartment is actually giving the surrounding where not only each family is actually connected with each other, because everyone has their needs and things like that, and if all those people are actually at the neighbor, it kind of like something really helpful for them, right? And it could build the relationship, it could build the kind of like a very strong relationship between in them. So when it has relationship is kind of like a only very much important factor to kind of like a increase the happiness, right? So this is kind of like a stuff that I do. So as a owner, what I did to kind of like ensure the health, what I do, I ensure as a health. Okay, I these are like as a owner, I kind of like took care of the health because I built the hospital. I took care of the education because I built the kind of like a school. I took care kind of like simply the apartment or things like that. because it kind of build the kind of like a relationship and increase the happiness and things like that. By kind of like a creating event to kind of like a increase the happiness and things like that. I also kind of like a do the retirement fund for all those things, which kind of like a make sure that all those people will be secure and things like that, so they will kind of like a bit really happy or things like that. So these are kind of like a steps that I did to kind of like a not only my employee get the salary, as well as they are kind of like a literally assure that their future will be secured. Not only their future, but as well as their family's future will also little bit sure too. Obviously, if the kind of like a person willing to want to not to live with them, or kind of like a want to go to the private school or want to go to the private hospital, things like that, he can go. Okay, he can go. But the people who can't really afford, this is kind of like a stuff that I'm provided, which kind of like a add little bit of help to the, yeah. So this is the kind of like a employee, this is the kind of like a as a owner that I would gonna do. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a example that I mentioned regarding about as a business level. But when you went to country level, this is the same thing happened too. Okay, yeah, because in the country level, they are kind of like a do this kind of like a same thing. Everyone kind of like a government decided that key ensure the jobs. Okay, increase in job and things and that and things. Okay, yeah. Dude, I kind of like explain this thing with the very stuff and stuff like that. All right, yeah. So this is the way that you are not only gain the profit, but as well as kind of like somebody ensure the your people in their country is also get really happiness. Their health care is also really good. Their kind of like assurance regarding about their life is really good. They feel little bit settled and things like that, which kind of like give them confidence to the people. And it's kind of like something really helpful for not only to the company, but as well as kind of like somebody creating such an environment where everyone gets the happiness, everyone kind of like gain a little bit of value from them, which is really matter, which is kind of like something really important for everything. Okay, yeah. Now dude, I just kind of like didn't really ask the kind of like a question that is kind of like a matter. Okay, what are kind of like somebody credible source to kind of like a determine regarding about the happiness, healthcare? How do I supposed to measure that thing? There are a couple of kind of like a something the index or kind of like a reports. Okay, yeah. First of all, human development index. Okay, yeah. These are kind of like some really good, which kind of like a measure regarding about how many people are actually live long. Okay, yeah. How many people live long is actually rely on how many hospitals that we have, how many doctors that we have. Okay, yeah. Does people are educated enough? Okay, yeah. Like basically, does people get the primary education, secondary education, or kind of like a university level of education? They're getting it not. Okay, human HDI, okay, HDI is kind of like a measure that thing. Human development index is kind of like a measure that thing. How many people actually earning money? Okay, yeah, like basically is this kind of like a exploitation of the human exploitation is actually happen or not, or things or that. It kind of like a measure by this thing. Now there is a social progress index too, SPI. Okay, these are kind of like a simply index. These kind of like a simply measure that how many people have food. Okay, yeah. Does people have enough food for kind of like a simply get 2 times of food or not? Okay, they have access the good healthcare system or not? Okay, like basically hospitals and doctor and things like that. They achieve the safe and free their own choices, means like that ki whatever kind of like somebody choices that they want. Okay, like they got the freedom or not? Like if the person decided to want to become a filmmaker or lawyer or doctor or astronaut, does that person get the freedom or not? Okay, yeah. Social progress index determine that. Now gross national happiness is actually determine that how good is your governance. Okay, yeah. Means like that good is governance means like that ki you have democracy or not. Okay, another thing is that ki you have kind of like assembly like a not just kind of like assembly, just a kind of like assembly that ki one party ruling the everything. No, like how multiple parties have multiple agenda regarding about what they are kind of like a people's life or kind of like citizen of the country's life should supposed to be good or not. Okay, good governance is actually not only kind of like counts that, it also counts that how many laws that we have, how many judiciary system that we have. All the judiciary system is actually applicable for all those people or not. Okay, yeah. If the people actually do the crime, or if the people are actually kind of like a get the kind of like somebody victim get kind of like somebody the justice or not. Okay, yeah. This is also kind of like somebody measured. Protecting the environment means like that the person who's actually living, the person where is living, does that kind of like a environment good or not, like a polluted or not, like these are kind of like things are measured by the GNH. Okay, yeah. Preserving culture is really important. Okay, yeah, because culture is kind of like a some bit really essential factor for kind of like a increasing the happiness. Because let's just say Ganpati festival, or let's just say kind of like a Durga Puja festival, these are kind of like some festival are bring people connected to each other. When the people actually connect to each other, they are kind of like a bring the happiness. Okay, they entire event kind of like a became little bit of really good, really happy, or things like that. So cultural event are really essential for kind of like a build the happiness, stuff like that. Okay, yeah. Then fair economic development, like basically the corruption happen or not. Okay, yeah, like if the corruption is actually happened, then probably it kind of like a measure by the G gross national happiness index. Okay, because corruption is kind of like a somebody really essential factor to like a really kind of like somebody a not good factor to it will not gonna grow because it cripple our people's minds and things like that. So basically is this thing the corruption should supposed to be happen less or maybe nothing. Okay, yeah. These are kind of like some measurement is actually measurement is actually kind of like a done by the gross national happiness, GNH. Okay, yeah. Then genuine program indicator. Okay, these are kind of like a GPI. Is kind of like a probably advanced version of GDP. What is actually it measure the regarding about the environmental factor, how much it kind of like affect on environment, how much kind of like people are actually environmental, the clean form of energy, like people are using which kind of like a vehicle, EV vehicle, petrol vehicle, diesel vehicle, what kind of like some impact on the environment. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that key basically is this thing does people are actually doing any kind of like a, something the pollution, like basically if the people is actually kind of like a making the food by in chulha, it kind of like create the pollution. Okay, yeah. So make sure that give them kind of like a LPG gases which kind of like some prevent them not to create those greenhouses gases and things like that. So indirectly it's kind of like some helping the environment and stuff like that, so which is really essentially important factor for this thing. So these are kind of like a summary the list and index are kind of like a summary measure to people growth. Okay, regarding about this and that, and regard not only growth but it actually growth, it actually measures the growth of the country's growth and things like that. Okay, yeah. Right now I'm living in India. Okay, yeah. The GDP of the India is almost like a $3 trillion. We are almost like a fourth, maybe fourth, yeah, fourth, yeah, because first is the US, then China, then Germany, and we just crossed Japan, so we are in fourth rank. Okay, we are in fourth rank of GDP. But GDP is also count as just a kind of like a profit. But these are kind of like a somebody human development index. Okay, yeah. Then gross national happiness index. Then genuine program indicator. Then social program index. These are kind of like somebody the parameter are kind of like a measure regarding about happiness, healthcare, culture. These are things are really essential too. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like if we are kind of like a measure those steps, we are kind of like a counting how many people are really happy and how many people are really good and things like that. Because in the end, it will kind of like simply add value in our company, so add value in our country, as well as kind of like simply make our countries grow bigger. Okay, yeah. We are not just focused on just a profit. We are focusing on multiple things to kind of like simply the improve everyone life. Okay, and this is what kind of like simply government wants. All right, yeah. So this is it. This end, I just talk about almost like a 53-minute talk. I'm really tired to talk right now. But it's like, it's really good topic. Yeah, I just kind of like, I learned so many things about how much it kind of like affect, like how much GDP and things like that. So yeah, whatever, this end, and thank you.